Welcome back. Coming back to more factorisation. A lot of people, when they start to learn factorisation, they'll go, yeah, I'm okay with it, I can do this. But then when they come to putting it together as a whole mix, they get mixed up and they're not sure which one to do. Let's go back to this. So there's all sorts here. So if I said I need to multiply the 4, I could be 1 and 4, I could be 2 and 2. This positive here tells us that they have to be the same sign. So what do I mean by that? That means when I write the brackets, these two here have to be the same sign. Obvious part is x times x would give us x squared if we expanded the brackets. So we're doing the reverse to expand, which is called factorise. Which one of those adds up to 4? The 2 and the 2. So I can go 2 and 2 there. So that tells us that it's the same sign and they're both positive. So there's your positive. Interesting part is if those two brackets are the same, if you want to, most teachers would expect it, you can write the whole bracket with a little 2 on the top, which means you've written it twice and you have a multiplication in between. Now we'll go to the next one and you've got a subtraction, which means they are different signs. That means one has to be a positive and one has to be a negative. Let's have a look at it. We've got a 1 and an 8. Or it could be a 2 and a 4. Which one of those is going to add up to 2? Well, the problem is one of them has to have a subtraction or a negative. Let's say I use the top one, -1 plus 8 would be 7, so that's not the correct one. And we're lucky here, -2 plus 4 gives us +2. So sometimes I say it gives us +2. So that's the correct one. So go back to the x squared. We know that's x and x. We know we've got a 2 and a 4, and then you've got the question of which one gets the negative. And in this case, the 2 gets a negative and the 4 gets a positive. The shortcut is when you've got different signs, the bigger one of those two gets that sign there. So it's almost like it comes down and it goes there with the bigger number. Number 3, same thing applies. I can get a 1 and a 12, I can get a 2 and a 6, I can get a 3 and a 4. So what does the negative up here, or the subtraction up here tell us? 1 negative. Well, I like to say 1 neg. So it's either that, could be on that, could be on that, could be on that. I could actually write out 6 possibilities, but there's no need to. Let's have a look at it. You've got an x, you've got a bracket with an x, and we need 2 numbers that multiply to 12 that are different. So 1 negative means that they're different. One gets a negative and one gets a positive. So that one would give us 11. That one would give us 4, -2 plus 6 is 4. This one would give us 1. So look at our answers, and this one had a 1, but it didn't have a positive 1. See, this ended up, when I added it up, -3 plus 4, and I summed those two, or I worked out the calculation, I get a positive 1. But I didn't want a positive 1, I wanted a negative 1. So if I would have written the question down and I said there's the 3 times 4 and I'll put the minus there, I can go 3 minus the 4 is a -1. So now I'm getting the sign that I want there. Let's have a look at what we've got. I've got a +3 and I've got a -4. Let's talk about this again. The bigger of those two is the 4. It gets the sign from the front one. So this tells us they're going to be different, and this sign goes with the bigger of the two numbers. So there's so many shortcuts if you get the hang of it. Trouble is we learn so much in maths, you don't sometimes get a chance to take it in, or by the time you don't use it for a month or 2, or even for a week, you forget how to do it. So 14 is either 1 and 14, or 2 and 7. To me, this is the easiest of the lot. They're the same sign, because 2 negatives will make it positive. So let's have a look at it. That's got to be an x and an x. It has to be a 2 and a 7, because 2 plus 7 will give us the 9. This tells us they're both negatives or both subtractions. Last one, we go to 1 by 7. That's our only possibility. Can you imagine later on though, sometimes if this was a 7, you can't go 1 plus 7 gives you 7. So there needs a whole new method, but for start with, we're just doing the simple ones. People have enough trouble with them. So by the way, that tells us they have to be different. So that means one of these will get a negative. So I actually could write them down if I wanted to, as -1 and 7, or 1 and -7. And then I could look at that and go, well, minus 1 plus a 7 would give us a 6. Or I could go 1 minus 7 gives us a minus 6. And you go, which is the correct one? Obviously it's that one there. Let's have a look at what we've got. I've got an x, I've got an x, I know it's a 1 and a 7. The shortcut method is the bigger of the two gets that sign there. So that becomes the subtraction, which we can see over there. So yeah, you can think of it this way, you can think of it that way. And that's a positive. And there's factorisation on a reasonable mixture. It's actually quite challenging and a lot of people struggle with it. So if you don't come back to it, you forget it. So one of the biggest things in maths, if you don't use it, you lose it. And it's not just maths, it's everything. Our brain just forgets things. So you need to keep coming back to it till it sinks in. Doesn't mean that you need to spend hours doing worksheets full of stuff. No. It's handy to do lots. But to refresh your brain, you usually only need one, often even only 1 or 2 examples. If you come back and do a couple of them, you write it on a piece of paper, keep it in your pocket, or you put it on the toilet door, stick a piece of paper on the toilet door with a reminder, and just nag yourself until it sinks into your brain and then it sticks.